Welcome to this podcast. Is making me thirsty. The number one destination for Seinfeld fans. This is episode 76. Today's guest, we're excited to talk to him. He is the inspiration for Kramer. Please welcome Kenny Kramer. Thanks, Kenny, for joining us.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. There's a lot of people.
Yeah, Kenny, this is a real treat for us. So take us back and you tell me the year. So when I know you were living in Hell's Kitchen, you're raising your daughter, and then all of a sudden your neighbor happens to be Larry David. What year was that? And tell us a little bit how you first met Larry.
I met Larry. I first met Larry, I guess, in the late 70s. We just ran into each other at Catch a Rising Star. I was like working a lot as a stand-up, doing colleges, theaters, corporate stuff. And Larry was a struggling comic, and he was he was a tough case. Anyway, this building opened up in New York, a federally subsidized building for performing artists. And I moved in there, Larry moved in there, and the building was all singers, dancers, musicians, entertainers. It was really quite an experiment, It's called Manhattan Plaza. In fact, there's a documentary about it called The Miracle on 42nd Street. Anyway, when the building was opened, it became occupied at 100% within the first 3 months. And the management thought it would be a good idea to have a talent show utilizing the talent of these entertainers that live in the building. And they asked me if I would MC it. I was happy to do it. And then they asked if I would help produce it and coordinate the acts. So I said, sure, why not? So they sent me a list of comedians that are in the building. Everybody I called up, I explained to them the building's putting on this show. How'd you feel about doing 10 minutes of material in front of your neighbors? And everybody I pitched this to were going, yeah, sure, I'll do that. And it was a gig. They were going to pay us too. So Larry says, everybody's thrilled to be a part of it until I got to Larry David, who I really didn't know. It was a name on a paper. I called him up. Larry David, Kenny Kramer. Listen, I'm a fellow comedian. The building is putting on this cabaret night. How would you feel about doing 10 minutes of material in front of your neighbors for $100? No, I don't think so. Well, why not? Well, I don't think my act would be appropriate. So what do you mean? He says, well, I don't have a good feeling about doing this. So I said, look, I don't know what your problem is, but you're afraid your act's not appropriate? I'll tell you what, I'm going to come and watch one of your sets, and I'll tell you if it's appropriate or not. Mm-hmm. I go to the Improv, which is around the corner from where we're living, and Larry goes on, and his act in those days was hit or miss. He could either just destroy a room, or on the other hand, vacuum the laughter out of that room for the rest of the night. It was hit and miss. It was stand-up Russian roulette with Larry. Anyway, the night I saw him, he was fabulous. He blew the place apart. He was definitely the hit of the night. And afterward, I had a little get-together for some of the acts that performed in the show. And I said, hey, Larry, why were you so reluctant to do your act, in front of the audience? He says, oh, I was afraid if the management saw my act, they might kick me out of the building thinking I'm not that good a comedian. Anyway, the next day he shows up at my door, want to go get some lunch? And we started hanging out. We became great friends.
Incredible.
And that's how it, we lived on a fourth floor, 2 apartments facing each other, just like it looks on Seinfeld, right across the hall from each other. In 1989, Jerry approaches Larry about, hey, NBC's interested in me having a show. Would you help me with this? They went for a walk and, they talked about it, came up with the idea of this show that would be 2 comedians live walking around the city, just commenting on shit. And they made, that was in 89, 1990, I think it was, they aired the pilot for the first time.
Right.
And a couple of years later, they made 4 test episodes after the original pilot. They figured, well, let's give it a shot, and they made 4. They ordered 4 episodes. This is the lowest order you could have on television sitcoms. Usually you get 13 weeks. They gave them.
So, Kenny, so those first 4 episodes you talked about, right? The pilot, right? They used Kessler as Kramer's name, right? And the story goes that if Larry used your name, you would kind of cause a ruckus, if you will. Take us through that. How did they approach you to say, like, we want to use Kramer? Kessa doesn't play very well. Like, how did that come about? That discussion, and what was the negotiation like there for you?
Larry comes into my house and says, Kramer, I'm going to write this pilot with Seinfeld. I want to base a character on you and call him Kramer, okay? I said, it's okay as long as I get to play Kramer. He says, you can't be Kramer. I said, what do you mean I can't be Kramer? I am Kramer. He says, they're going to want an actor in L.A. who's got all kinds of television credits. You have no chance, and I have no input at all. I'm just a writer on this thing. He said, so forget about playing Kramer. So I said, okay, do what you have to do. Good luck. And so they went ahead and they filmed those 4 episodes. The first one was Kessler was the name of it, because they couldn't they were using stories from my life, and they couldn't use my life stories. I wasn't a figure at that point. They would have to compensate me, and they offered me $100 for the rights to my character and my stories in perpetuity. And I said, that's not going to fly. I'm signing away my $1,000. So give me $1,000. They were big shot studios. Okay, 1,000. They were thrilled to give me $1,000. So anyway, when it came time for this thing to go on the air, they had to have paper with me that I consented to have these things put on television. And that was pretty much, the show took off. It became the biggest thing in the world. Kramer became the most beloved next door neighbor in the history of television. And while that was happening, I became the most beloved next door neighbor in the history of my apartment house.
Right.
So anyway, the show blossomed and took over. And after about the first 3 or 4 seasons, this show is really rocking and rolling. And I figured, I should cash in on this somehow. If I don't cash in on this, I'm an idiot. I came up with this concept of having a Seinfeld reality check. And as I was thinking about that, I was looking at my window and a Gray Line sightseeing bus passed. Wait a second, a tour, a Kramer reality tour, where I would tell all the stories behind the stories. And anyway, I ended up renting a theater and a bus, and a friend of mine, Bobby Allen Brooks, helped me with the script. And we put the thing on, and then I got really lucky. John Tierney at the New York Times did a story about there's a real Kramer, and he's starting this bus tour for Seinfeld fans. And once that hit the papers, and it hit worldwide, because Seinfeld at this point is an international television show, so they have the Associated Press and all these agencies that do media have what they call the international split. So the story about there's a real Kramer, he's starting, went international. And from that day, January 18th, 1996, my life was never the same. The next day, you see, television is driven by print media. And that story was in every newsroom in the country and in the world, and I was getting phone calls by the thousands, it was wild. And the tour started, and it sold out in 2 minutes, and then we extended it, and it lasted 25 years. This would have been, if we didn't have the pandemic, I would have been celebrating my 25th anniversary and announcing that the tour is going to be finished after 25 years. But then the pandemic, and it blew that whole story, and it blew my whole great retirement, and so.
Wow.
But,
So Kenny, actually, quick question. I'm assuming you go by Kramer and not Kenny. Is that correct?
Yes and no. My friends, when they're talking to me, they call me Kenny. Hey, Kenny, are you there? But when they talk about me, they say, you never believe what Kramer did.
So did you have to, did you ask, not that you had to ask, but did you run the reality tour idea by Larry and Jerry?
No.
Because it kind of,
when that story hit the papers, they were the first to call and congratulate me.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then they stole it.
And then they took the idea for Peterman. Yeah.
Were you giving out pizza bagels? So they
No, we hadn't started with that yet. And actually, the Soup Nazi, when they did that episode, there was a real guy, Al Yagana, and we started. That was part of the tour, was going to the soup. but we didn't. I did have junior mints.
So,
It-
so Kenny, when you we know that you were in an extra in the face painter in season 6 of the Ranger Devils
My
game, right? Were
6 year
you?
cousin, and go frame by frame. You can't miss me.
Yeah, but were you on set other than that? You know, were you
Oh
were
yeah,
you?
special guest.
Yeah, I was curious how often you maybe were on set and things like that, as far as like being kind of, around the
I,
shooting and
yeah,
things like that.
invited me out. I would come out. I came out 3, 4 times. I came out there while I was running, and I stayed at Larry's house. And I was treated, because Larry's like a god to those people. I'm God's son, so they really treated me well, and I got to schmooze and hang out with Jason and Julia. Julia had a baby at the time, so she was most of the time in her dressing room when she was shooting. And Kramer and Michael and I got to know each other, and it turns out we had a lot in common. He's a single parent raising his daughter. So many things. We had the same experiences, and so we became friendly. I didn't say we were great friends, but we became friendly. And I loved hanging out there, and craft services. They always had food, great food all day long. Keep bringing it in, and I watched the whole process of how Larry put that show together. From the initial script to the first table read, to the rehearsals, to the stocking, to the shoot with an audience, and then after the shoot, the pickups. Well, somebody blows a line in the shoot, they don't bother to go back and redo it unless they have to. They just wait and do a pickup, and do the line that they needed, so they got it right. And it was just a great learning experience to see how a sitcom is made from the first draft to the completed project. So
And
I was
that,
there. Yeah, I'm sorry.
yeah, no, I mean, that must have been amazing from your eyes, right? I mean, just the story you told earlier, going back to the 80s, where you were asking Larry David if he would, talk in front of
As neighbors.
his neighbors, and he was kind of scared and shy, and and
It was
now he's running the number one show in America. It's unbelievable. So, but take us back. So, 82 to 88. Um, did Jerry? I mean, I know Jerry and him were pretty good friends, but did he ever come by? Did you ever meet him before?
When we're working on the script, they wrote it across the hall from me, and so Jerry and I became quite friendly, especially when I was out in L.A. because I would go with Larry and Jerry when they went to Warner Brothers to do the mixing, which was an interesting part of the process. But yeah, it was 1989 was the first episode, and
Right.
98 was the last.
So when we know, okay, I do know the revenge when George quits and then goes back on Monday, right? That's a story that Larry's told when it happened at SNL, and you told him just go back, right? So what other stories were taken straight out of you, like straight out of your life that you saw? You were like, that's my life. Like we know the revenge. What are some other ones?
The reality tour,
The reality tour for sure. Like any of Kramer's ideas or any of those, like the pizza pie one, or like the the hot tub inside the apartment and things like that.
Well, remember, there is a hot tub in my building, and I spend a lot of time. And I played golf with Larry quite a bit. We go up to Van Cortlandt and play golf. And Larry did one very pivotal thing in my life. He turned me on to avocados. He was never into avocado.
Joe's fruit stand? Did you get him at Joe's fruit stand?
Absolutely. Where else would I? Joe's right down the street.
So, were you banned from Joe's?
Larry was for a while.
Really?
He was an inveterate fruit squeezer. And Joe said, "Look, you touch another piece of fruit that you don't buy, you're out of here. You're not my customer anymore." So I was intimidated. He would never go back. Hey, Kramer, when you pass Joe's, would you pick me up a couple of apples and an avocado? Okay, no problem. He was Joe intimidated him.
So,
Did
so
you, Kramer's such a eccentric character, but he's kind of relatable to everybody, right? I mean, you know, from someone he meets in the street to Mickey. Like, were you that kind of guy, or how different did Michael Richards kind of play Kramer, if you will,
Well,
versus?
when Michael Richards, got the gig that he's going to be based on Larry's friend Kenny Kramer, who lived across the hall from him, he didn't. He chose not to do any research. He didn't want to know. He didn't want to meet me. He didn't want to know anything about me. He wanted to create his own character from the ground up, and he felt he would just be trapped if it had to do with me. And so we didn't get to meet until the second season of the show. But he all that stuff that he did, that he brought to the character, that brought it to life. Like in the beginning, his zany stuff. They would keep telling him, tone it down, not so big, not so big. But he didn't listen. He went out and did it. It got to the point that he became so popular amongst the fans that when they would tape the shows, they would have to come out and say, now when Michael comes out or any member of the cast comes out, don't, if they're in a scene and the first time we see Michael, he'll come out, they would applaud. So they had to advise the audience, don't applaud when you see the actors come out. It's screwing us up, with the timing.
Yeah.
And so,
What's interesting
the stuff
is
that Michael does, the stuff that Michael does. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say what's interesting is they use that in the season 4 arc of doing the show within the show. When they were going to play Kramer, Kramer says he doesn't want to meet with the actor. Larry Hankin played. Did they approach you at all for being the Kramer in the pilot of the show within the show to play that Larry Hankin role, or did you try to throw your hat in the ring for that?
I said no, it wasn't happening.
Gotcha. We talked to Larry Hankin a little bit. He was on the show. We talked to him about that, and I was just curious.
There was an incident in the auditions when somebody took the box of razors that was on the table.
Yes.
When he sees something that strikes him as funny or unique or clever, he'll be in the middle of a conversation with him, and he goes blank, and he pulls out this little pad. He starts writing down, which is a great discipline for comedians. I mean, if you have a great funny thought and you don't write it down, you could lose it forever. So anyway, the Michael, knew it was based on me, but he didn't want to meet me. We became friendly when I would go out there. But those entrances of his, people don't realize how difficult and how hard he works at his craft. I mean, he's one of the great physical comedians like Charlie Chaplin or any of those physical guys. I mean, like a little tangent, just these little, like walking in the door, how he slides in, how he comes in and throws money on the table. I'm out.
So did throughout the years, I mean, Larry's been known to be a studious note taker and has a great memory, but I'm just curious if he ever called you and bounced ideas off you. I mean, the line I always think of about Kramer is, he falls ass backwards into money and has sex without dating. Now that's so I'm just curious, like, any of that tied to you? Like, did you fall ass backwards into money and have sex without
dating? Yep, that's me. Electronic jewelry, which I started manufacturing and wholesaling, and like these electronic jewelry pieces were costing me like 70, 80 cents to manufacture, and they were selling for $15, $15. So I did fall ass back, and I've always been into sex without dating. I don't think it's necessary to date in order to have sex.
From your mouth,
but the other thing that happened, that whole episode during the Chinese hair growing time.
Yes,
exactly the way it went. Exactly the way it went down. We were in Larry's house waiting for a Chinese food delivery when Larry He says, I saw this thing on television in China. They have a hair growing tonic. How can I find out about it? Oh, call CNN, and get the segment producer. They'll tell you where to go. And he does that. And then he was going to do it. He picked up the phone to call, and they didn't speak any English. And just coincidentally, the Chinese delivery boy knocked on the door with our dinner. I said, wait a minute, do you speak China? Come here, get on the phone. And then, sure enough, he got on the phone. They ordered the stuff. It came. It smelled horrible, and then he turned that into an episode.
That's incredible.
King.
Yeah, that's incredible. Is it true that you and Larry shared like a TV and a car? Is that accurate?
It's sort of accurate. We did share a car, a little Fiat that he brought in from California, and we were partners on it. I mean, we both used it equally. I helped with the insurance. No, what happened with the TV was Larry decided that he's spending too much time cooking for himself and cleaning and all that, and he decided that television was robbing his life.
Which Kramer, yeah, that's a story. Kramer does that, and Kramer gets rid of his TV.
Larry decides that he's going to become a minimalist. So he emptied his silverware. So he only had one knife, one fork, one spoon, one tablespoon, one dinner plate, one soup dish. And he goes, Kramer, I'm paring down. I'm going to get hours more of my life. I can't have the TV in my house. I watch it too much. You want the television? It's yours. I can't take your television. You could miss it. He's, no, I'm done with TV. It's just robbing my life. So now the television in my house. I'm watching this big TV in my living room, and I moved the other TV into the bedroom. And Larry's going, hey, Kramer, you going to watch the hockey game tonight? That's what I was thinking of. He said, okay, can I watch it? Yeah, go and sit down. Hey, Kramer, Yankee game's on. You watching it? And like our doors are always open.
Right.
We just walk apartments. He would come into desserts. I always had a lot of dessert in the house, And so it came to the point where he asked to watch so much shit on television that I said, Larry, this isn't working out. You're taking the TV back. And the TV went back, and writing episodes, he thought, that's really funny what happened. That was an episode of Seinfeld.
Yeah.
So just normal neighbory stuff, right? And he took that and brought it to another level.
Ordinary, just like the contest. That was between him and two friends. And,
so Kenny, clearly you're a big fan of the show, and you're happy with all that's done for you. Obviously, the 25 years almost of the reality tour. What are some of your favorite episodes? Top five. What do you got?
Well, Larry and I used to think about that together. Like, what are the 10 best episodes of Seinfeld? And it's hard to pick 10 because there's always, what about this? Oh, wait a minute. The only one that everybody agrees on, the number one episode of Seinfeld, that episode that belongs in the annals of television history, is the contest. Think about this. 10 years prior to the airing of that, Rob and Lori Petra had to sleep in separate beds. They weren't allowed to be in the same bed. And here you have the contest on NBC, 9 o'clock, prime time, where the members make a bet who could go the longest without masturbating, without ever even using that word. I mean, that NBC allowed that to air. It was like a miracle. But, funny can't be stopped. It was just so funny. And, Larry and he used to have a whiteboard that had all story ideas, And he didn't have the contest on there because the executives, the suits would come in and say, what's that one about? What's that one about? Right. And he didn't want anybody to know about it until the table read. That was the first time anyone saw the script for the contest. And it blew the place apart, laughing hysterically. They go, what a show, what a show. NBC will never let us do that. NBC let them do it.
Funny can't be stopped.
That's it. It's that funny and that powerful. You can't stop it.
So you mentioned, yeah, I mean, fun. It's just incredible that you know, the stories you're giving us. You know, in the Face Painter, the season 6 episode where you're in the Ranger jersey, was that did you kind of pick that episode and that scene to be the one you were in because you're a Ranger fan, or that just
Uh,
happened to be when they kind of put you in there?
I was having to be there when they were about to shoot that scene, and we were already jumping up and down in the stands. And one of the writers said, "Kramer, come on, come with me. Let's get in the shot." And I stood next to Michael and jumped up and down with my Ranger shirt on. You know, and I actually made it to the screen.
Right.
But it was just that
When you mentioned earlier that, you know, Jerry and Larry were writing it across the hall from you, like the first, you know, the pilot and the first episodes, what was going through your mind? Were you just like, oh, these guys, you know, they're not going to make it. They're just, did they seem like because they portray it in the show as if like, you know, I say hello, you say hi, now what? They're always taking naps and they never really get anywhere. Like, was it similar to that? Were you coming in and interrupting them with, hey, Kramer, let's go for it? Like, how did that? I'm just curious, like, from your perspective back then, was it like, these guys have no idea what they're doing. It's never going to go anywhere. They're, or were they like disciplined and they actually, you know, were very like, I don't know. I'm just curious how that all went down.
Larry and Jerry are two very funny people, very funny in different ways in terms of their approach to comedy. Excuse me. But I never thought that a network television was a good place for Larry to be with his sense of humor. I didn't think that I said this Larry will be a tremendous hit if they let Larry be Larry. But I doubted it at the time they would allow Larry to be Larry. But just Larry and Jerry clicked so strongly, and you know, Larry, he didn't care about that job. If they didn't do it his way, he's quitting, you know, constantly. And Jerry backed Larry all along because he knew Larry knows some stuff, you know. And Jerry had a lot of faith and confidence and dependence on Larry.
Hey, Kenny,
It
was always curious, just based on the show. Was there obviously you and Larry across the hall? Did you have a Newman type friend in the building
no, not really. No,
at Manhattan
I can't
Plaza?
point.
No,
No, I can't point to anybody that I would.
because you know, Kramer's such a, I don't know. He's a lovable guy, but he's also mysterious. I'm curious if that's how you were in the building. Like people didn't know a lot about you, yet you were everyone's friend.
Yeah, no, people knew me. I was doing stand up at the time. Then when I went into the jewelry business, and you know, I let the stand up kind of slide because I was making so much money with this jewelry. Like if an agent would call me up and offer me a job for $350 to go out to Long Island, I'd say, no, I get $5,000 a night now. That's my price. And so 2 or 3 phone calls like that were show business. I was in the business of making some money for that.
When did you? Who moved out of the complex first? The Manhattan Plaza complex first.
Larry had a girlfriend and he was staying with a lot. Lori Leonard, who became his wife, is now his ex-wife. And she had an apartment on 86th Street. And Larry and she were in love, and he was staying at her house an awful lot. And he kept his apartment across the hall when he went to LA to finishing up doing the first 4 episodes. And when he came back, he decided he was going to give up the apartment. He says, I feel as long as I have this apartment, I'm sort of committed. I'm not committed to this relationship. But if I give up the apartment, then I'm in all in, you know, be first. So he gave up the apartment. And then, of course, he did 4 episodes, and the show got picked up for 12, and then it got picked up for 22, and then it was a certifiable hit show, and
incredible.
And he never looked back.
Right. So that's true. Then so in the show, when he writes the pilot, he gets Susan right when the show is about to take off, and he's all upset because now he finally got a job where he can get a girl, but now he's got a girl. So that was really happening to him. It sounds like he had this girl, he fell in love with her right when he writes the pilot. The pilot takes off, everything takes off, and now he's married and he can't get girls because he was engaged for a while. Yeah.
In fact, he was out with Lori looking at wedding rings, and in front of Tiffany's, he said, "Look, I can't do this," and he just ran away from her. And he came to my house very distraught. What's the matter? I said, I can't believe I just left Lori in the street and ran away from her. I can't go through with this. How can I marry her? I said, well, look, let's make a list. Sit down. Draw a line down the middle of the paper. I want you to write everything good about her on one side, and on the other side, all the negative shit that you can't live with, And like, she's very superficial and show busy. And then what's the good stuff? She's got great tits. Everything was, she has great tits. He made that list. Eventually, he married her, and the show took off while he was just getting married. So, California, she had 50% of everything. So he told me in his divorce, he had to give her $100 million. He said, but it was the best $100 million I ever spent. That's what he told me.
Well, Kenny, I hate to rap on a story about tits, so we'll give you one more.
Let me tell you guys about something that I'm doing now.
Oh, yeah. Well,
yeah, of course.
Very I'm in with this company. I'm partnering with a company called Cameo. Cameo's business model is they get these celebrities, and they have a website called cameo.com,
Sure.
and they hire these celebrities to do personal greeting cards and birthday cards, and so they go to the website. If you want to find, if the parents are having an anniversary and you want to surprise them, and they're huge Seinfeld fans, you could have a video from the real Kramer thanking them for so many years of pleasant marriage and blah blah blah. And whatever the occasion, happy birthday. I had a guy who said, I want you to send it. He hired me to send a cameo to his friend who's in the Air Force, stationed in England, and very unhappy and depressed. And, could you send him a note to cheer him up? That was the job order, So I created, hey, your friend Michael's worried about you. He says you're bored and you're not getting around having as much fun as you should be having. So I have a suggestion for you. Here's what you do. I say, get a couple of tickets to Amsterdam, bring a friend with you, and then go to the red light district. It's unbelievable. You'll have so much fun there. And just remember, only get what you need. And so I spill out things, and people call in and they get it online. It's Cameo. You go to cameo.com /Real Kramer, and I could make one of friends, relatives, or a birthday greeting to a Seinfeld fan, and from the Real Kramer, and they're really funny and they're cute. So it's a unique gift,
Yeah.
Anyway, that's what I'm into.
No, that's awesome, Kenny. I mean, you've brought so much joy to millions of people. I mean, I know our fans are gonna love connecting with you as this comes out. So just thanks so much for the time, and thanks for all the stories. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, hopefully there'll be a tour one day, but right now it doesn't look good.
Let's get one more tour we want at least.
So anyway, good luck, guys.
Thank you, Kenny. This was great. We really appreciate it, man.
Hey, man, it's been my pleasure.
All right.
All the best, Kenny.
And all your fans. Okay. Take care. Cheers.
Have a good one, man. Have a great night. Thank you.